be able to pop in last Friday to our triple threat meeting. And we know that's really difficult when you have a job that doesn't allow that. But I think she got to see firsthand just the dynamic team that we have. And, you know, really over the last 5 or 6 years, I think from an instructional standpoint, we have just made great strides with our teachers through the TAP process and our CQI process. And again, behind you is our CQI process, continued quality improvement. We've just made a lot of strides. But what we have found over the years is our kids are coming to us with so many challenges in their life. I mean, that's kind of the best way to describe it. And it's been exciting over the last couple of years. Dr. Hammock started PBIS and restorative practice training, and we're at different points in that. And then our next part of that three-legged stool of trying to deal with the self, the individual student, and trying to give teachers the tools to be successful. And again, these are really not academics, but they have such a connective to that. And again, last Friday, it was just kind of neat to be here and listen to what all the buildings are doing with PBIS training and restorative practices, and now looking at, you know, social emotional learning. And so we've got a great team that's working on this. We have a lot of people that are trained in different areas. And Mary, with that, I asked Mary Friday, I said, hey, why don't you come to the board meeting and give our board just a quick update?
Well, I'm really excited.
And your screen just changed.
Yep.
Okay,
I wanted
great.
yeah, I'm really excited to, I'm one of those old school presenters. It's hard for me to stay behind a microphone. And then I always have to have a cover page that nobody looks at, but it's for my personal reference. I'm really excited to talk a little bit about the direction that we're going as a district with curriculum and instruction. It's not often that we have a common curriculum and instruction need K through 12. Usually it's something the second and third grade building needs, or it's a middle school issue, or it's a high school concern. So for us to come together and say we are seeing the exact same thing across grade levels, across content areas, whether it's male, whether it's female, with our general ed, our special ed, that's rare, and it's something to listen to. As you know, when we talk about curriculum instruction, you generally hear us talk about academics. So when we say curriculum instruction, we're talking about academic skills and content. We'll talk about reading, math, critical thinking, problem solving, writing, and digital literacy. And our kids fit, most of our kids, fit pretty nicely under that umbrella of academics. But not all our kids do. And what we're finding is we need to offer a little something different to our students. And that would be a second piece or addition to our curriculum and instruction called social emotional learning. And just like we have academic skills and content, we have social and emotional learning skills and content. And that might include communication skills, goal setting, work ethic, relationship skills, responsible decision making. So if you have children, or you ever of your own, or you've worked with children, you know that we call this parenting, right? As we look at it. Just like all kids deserve to have the opportunity to get access to good academic curriculum and instruction, all students deserve the opportunity to have access to social emotional learning curriculum and instruction as well. Our goal is not that they're separate. So we've been spending a lot of time as a district talking about how can we combine these so that they merge together to create a large umbrella where our students, and I don't know why it's not syncing up because it just kicked me out. Get on here real fast. But our goal is to take those two umbrellas and create a large one, that where we merge together academic and social emotional learning skills and content. Because in real life, if you think about your jobs or anything we do outside of the building, it's not separate. You need those social emotional behavioral skills to perform. For many of our kids, we can't get to the academic skills and content until we address social emotional learning. And that's true beginning in kindergarten and ending at the high school level. We at the high school were doing, looking at our best grading practices and saying, what do grades represent? And it was a big aha for several of our teachers when we said these students with Fs, does that represent that they cannot master your content, or they cannot master a skill you are teaching? And several of our teachers said, no, it measures the fact that they don't have work ethic. And that's not what grades should reflect. So combining those pieces, beginning in kindergarten, or even in preschool, and working that way up, we're looking at creating what we call a whole child approach to teaching. You'll find that often in K through 6. I'm very, very pleased with the middle school and high school. They've been very receptive, just good people in the classroom, administratively, support staff, certified and non-certified. They want to teach the whole child, but you don't often find that. Now, Liz and I had the opportunity, we were asked to present at the Advanced Ed conference downtown, and we spoke to, and the topic was implementing social emotional learning at the high school level. We are, right now in Marion County, the only high school that I know of that offers a social emotional learning curriculum where our kids can actually earn a credit at the high school, and we get paid funding for each child that takes it, because Liz is one smart cookie, and she connected it to a CTE course. So we actually get paid for teaching social emotional learning at the high school level. But when we presented, high schools, and we even had some non-high school campuses want to talk about how are you implementing this in your building. So it's a need not just within our state, but nationwide. So we're in good company, but as always, we are way ahead of the other districts. We are focusing on this approach, teaching that whole child. We know that when we teach both the social, or not just both, but when we teach the social, emotional, and behavioral pieces of a child, that's going to have an impact on their academics. And when we teach the whole child, that has a huge impact on our whole school population, which then hopefully will have an impact on our whole community. So that's the approach we are looking at with the implementation of social emotional learning. I want to talk a little bit about the heart and brain connection. This is not anything that most of us don't know, but negative emotions interfere with cognitive functions. And we have way too many children coming to us with negative emotions. And it gets in the way of our ability to provide them academic instruction. And so we are already, but doing it retroactively, teaching these social emotional skills. We just want to be, with social emotional learning, we're more proactive, it's purposely planned, it's data driven, and it's focused. I do want to highlight some research. Data shows that children or young people with higher emotional intelligence have higher grades, stay in school, and they make healthier choices. And I'm not just talking about healthy choices with foods, I'm talking about less risky choices that some of our young adults are making, and our little ones too, our younger boys and girls. Most importantly, when we focus on teaching the heart, as we call it, social emotional learning, that can actually change the brain function and structure more effectively and permanently than modern medicine can. I mean, it's not that medication, we don't support the use of it, but if we can add something, especially at a younger age, to begin changing how our students' emotions function, that's going to have a huge impact as they move on to the higher grade. This, once again, is just a little bit about the benefits of social emotional learning on academic performance, because I want to stress our focus is not being taken off of academic performance. This is a piece that's merged with it to enhance it. And then this is kind of where we're at. I'm going to end it with this. We are now, the high school has, this is our first year of full implementation with social emotional learning. And the middle school is ready to go, Central is ready to go, Hornet Park for next year, and we'll have already began actually delivering it in professional development. And Hornet Park and South Grove are ready to go. This is going to be a huge focus, of our summer retreat. And these are kind of our next steps with social emotional learning. I want to also highlight again that we currently have in place positive behavioral intervention and support. That's PBIS K through 6. And 7 through 12, we do restorative practice, which is really building a community of not just academic learners, but social, emotional, and behavioral. Very proactive about it. And that's kind of where I'm going to leave off on this to see if you have any questions for me or any of us. It was just a little update. Absolutely.
I do. My first thought, when you have high school kids, of course, they are in a situation where they can make more of their own decisions for themselves. But when we're talking kindergarten and central, these children, of course, need that support from all of you, but they also need reinforcement from the parent, obviously. And a lot of these kids don't get that. So what do you do to help teach the parent what it is that you're trying to help the student learn so that you don't have as many of the kids laying in the hallway throwing a 3-hour fit, because we know that they do that, and some parents don't care. They think it's their responsibility to teach them versus their responsibility to help teach them at home. Did that like go all the way around in a circle and not really ask a question? But do you know what do you understand what I'm asking?
And I think that's one of our big challenges. I know that we tried offering different types of parent workshop or programming or even just fun events, and it is a challenge for our families to find the time to come and support those things. But I think as we move forward with social and emotional learning, I think we need to take the avenue of putting the education out there for parents, and maybe that is through our newsletters, through the Hornet Blast, through I can see us doing little video clips of student Hornets in action of the things we're trying to teach them. So I think we can't quit trying to get the information to families.
Will you also maybe give family courses, so to speak, and let parents who don't get it or who want to get it, who've never had that support from their family and don't know?
That's actually part of, and that K through 6 has not yet gone through restorative justice training, which is restorative practice, but with restorative practice, we do we invite parents, aunts, uncles, whoever is
Yeah.
involved to come in and restore justice to whatever the situation was. The other thing is, it's interesting that you brought that up because it's come up at almost every building that we can only control what happens here, but we have a need. And it's not
Right,
enough to say
right.
we can, they have a need, they want to communicate. It is extremely frustrating when they're talking to a parent and the parent is either not engaged or defending an inappropriate behavior or in some way blames
Or
a
acting the
teacher.
same way that the child does
Yeah.
as an adult?
Absolutely. And we know that behavior is best learned when it's modeled, and a lot of the behaviors our kids are learning
Right.
that's being modeled for them are not behaviors we want them
Right.
to mimic or think is appropriate.
And I know it's a lot for all of you to have to take that on and teach a parent. I mean, that's hard. I get that.
Could you guys talk about some of the incentives you're doing at PBIS, checking in, just some of the other things you're doing to motivate our youngest Hornets?
So we've all three talked about PBIS and what that is. It's the profound focus on behaviors that we want. But we really do a lot of reinforcement of that behavior. And we all have some sort of token system where the students earn points, tickets, and are able to redeem those for prizes. This year, our focus has been on our boys and girls that need a little bit additional support. Think of it as a triangle, so tier 1 would be the intervention that everyone gets. The second tier would be intervention that a smaller group gets, and then our tier 3 kids are our most extreme concerns or circumstances often fall with some special education support. But for our tier 2 interventions, we all three use a system that's called check in, check out. We have pride cards. We each have staff that are designated in our building. So I might have these 6 students that check in and check out with me. They come see me first thing in the morning. They get the pride card in about 60 to 90 seconds. We talk about what their goal is for the day. Off they go. They check out at the end of the day with me. We see if they've met their goal. It's very data driven. Our PBIS coaches kind of coordinate that. So we have regular meetings to talk about how that's going. We also this year start some mentoring, so we work with some students. We ask staff, Tanya needs a little bit more support. Does anybody have 10 minutes twice a week that we need to talk to her? And we also all were trained to do brief FBAs, or it's like a behavior analysis, which I don't know that any of us have bitten that off yet this year, but it can help us. We interview the teacher, and we try to get to what is the source of the behavior that's needing us to figure out what kind of the triggers are. So EVIS, the training that we've gotten through Indiana University is where the trainers come from. Outstanding. It has shifted all of our thinking as building administrators. It is a slow process. We had a meeting last week and Tanya said, oh, I hope that after 3 months that we would be different. And it's going to take years, 2, 3, 4 years for us to see the benefits of it. But this was the first year that we were able to kind of get in, and now we all have things that we're going to tweak, and it's if nothing else, the school-wide expectations are the same at Rowan Park, at Central, and Southfield. So as our students go from building to building to building, which typical elementary students don't transition at all, and here they're transitioning 3 times, we at least have commonality in those expectations. So they're not going to come to me and be like, wow, it's different here, and then go to South Dakota, different there. So it's been very powerful.
It was kind of interesting when Mr. Hurley moved down to South Dakota. The first day we took him on a tour, and he's like, so quiet. Single quiet line. That's because of voice level 0. That's what we do. And it was just funny. And they line up in the cafeteria, and they leave it in a single file line at voice level 0. Yeah, that's what we do.
Was he worried they were Stepford children or something?
He was not used to all of that, yes. So it's kind of interesting, but we are all on the same page.
That's
The
awesome.
children and the teachers at South Dakota are all on the same page. It's a central and important.
And some of the things that, Mr. Hurley's responsible for having in place, I mean, even at the high school that we get compliments on about how the kids are really, this is a really quiet high school, or they'll say, when that second bell rings, these kids move. You don't have to tell them to move. And so we get compliments, but that's his norm. And so he doesn't realize how people, I mean, we do have really phenomenal buildings in that way, but the interesting, here's the biggest thing with social emotional learning that I think is true of each building. The goal is to keep them in the classroom for academic instruction. We have too many students that are falling behind academically through no fault of their own, and really no fault of our own. So because of barriers that prevent them. And they're coming to us with that, more and more students are coming. But I also want to reiterate, social emotional learning is great for all students, and we offer it in different ways. So like our enrichment programs at the high school where we offer, we have students who are not getting social emotional lessons via iSucceed, because if they're very academically strong, they're off doing other things where they're actually applying social emotional skills like responsibility and responsible decision making. So it's good for all children to get feedback on that, just like it's good for all children to get feedback on their academics.
And I'd like to comment on that just a second, and it ties into what Janice said about reaching home to the parents. One of the things, Henry was hitting a bump last semester, or last 9 weeks, and I met with his teachers. I was trying to figure it out. And the very next week, Mrs. Reed sent out her newsletter. And one of the things that you sent out in that newsletter was a list of questions to ask your kid when they get home from school that isn't, how was your day? It was a way to actively engage your kid. Did the teacher make a mistake? Did you see anybody pick their nose? Did you help anybody in a special way? And so I started asking Henry those questions. And it really opened up. It was an icebreaker, just to start a conversation that allowed us then to delve in deeper into what was troubling him in the classroom. And so, which sort of ties back to what you were asking, how are we educating out to the homes? And really something as simple as that. How do I address my kid when they come home from school that's not the normal, how was your day? It was great. How was your day? It was great. Just something silly to just sort of open that up. And I mean, my every kid's a mostly good kid. And sometimes even the mostly good kids need, and you can ask that kid that question, the high school kids or kindergartners, and so that, when you brought that up, that was the first thing that hit me was that's the way you sort of sneak that stuff in.
When you started talking, I kept thinking of that book, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, which is, about emotional intelligence. And when I read that book, I thought, how do we get that to the classroom? And being a non-educator, this is what you do.
Yeah, it's going to look different in each building. Our student need drives whatever we implement, which is a huge motto at Central that many of us have stolen, especially those of us who lead professional development. We've stolen it from Lisa. He talked about it earlier. So we actually, because we have a need based on our data, just like we make academic decisions based on data, we make social emotional curriculum decisions based on data. So we looked at academic performance, we looked at behavior, we looked at attendance and tardies, we looked at teacher feedback to make a decision, and we created that tiered intervention he was talking about with we have a class that is specifically tiered for social emotional learning for students who we've identified as high risk. Now, every student gets it in I Succeed twice a week, but very intensive. And and I gotta tell you, I was joking with Mr. Bear about it, but I was like, Liz and I could really make a lot of money for the district just selling the curriculum, which I gave you guys a copy of that we create. And you know what, here's the thing about it. We have the capacity in this district. We wrote that ourselves. And based it on our student needs. And it's happening across the district that we know what our students' needs are, and we can meet that. So we're really excited about this piece. I want to assure you that we're doing that balance of academic skills and content with social emotional learning, and the purpose is to teach that whole child, which is what we want to do anyways. So.
Mary, thank you very much
Really
for the
awesome.
presentation.
Very nice.
Just to try to keep our perspective, behind you, you have our CQI model. And as you start looking at it, we have academic dashboards which we're constantly working on. We have SMART goals and strategies, system-to-system meetings, like you do one with me and I work with you. Then we start quality tools. Then we get into best practices. This is an example of best practices, but it connects that academics and that social need. And our biggest challenge is, remember, a third of our population is going to change. And so this is not a one-shot solution. It's giving our teachers the skills so they're ready to start thinking about academic strategies and things like this. This is really going to turn into a foundation. We've been doing this for 9 years. And this may be some of the most important work that Mary just talked about we've done in 9 years, getting those students ready to learn. So we're excited about it. Just further shows you the great team we have working with your kids. So Mary, and to all the principals, great job. Mary, what kind of dog do you have?
Oh, actually, I have a Henry. He's a chocolate lab, and he's going to be, one of the small things that we're doing in social emotional learning is we're making sure that we have a access to a therapy dog in each building. And Henry is a chocolate lab. He is 5 months old, and he is fantastic. He did try to eat the iStep down in the admin building, and he tried to eat several things out of the trash, and Dr. Kaiser.
It's not a problem.
He is, I have to show a video, and I'll share it out, but when I say, he's 5 months old, and when I say, Henry, time to go to work, he sits and waits for me to put his orange thing on at 5 months old.
So cute.
He's just a delight, and the kids absolutely, at the high school we work at, they're like, don't touch Henry until he sits, because he's in training, because they know he has a big test to get certified in November. I do have to take off, guys, I'm very sorry. I actually have an abscess too that I didn't get worked on today. I found out today, and I was like, and I'm sitting here like, so I'm getting taken care of tomorrow, but I was like,
I can't believe she's even here.
Pull this tube and talk like this with the.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, well, let's go ahead and move on to curriculum.
Well, I think that's our curriculum report.
Okay.
And so we can slide
Community
over to.
relations then.
Yeah, I'll just give you just an overview. As you see in my report, we have a few more people coming to us to ask about how we do things because they've heard about us from other people. So my assistant teacher from Martinsville High School, who's working on our administrator's license this past month. And then Dr. Kaiser and I, as we talked to you previously, went to Shelbyville. And they were so quick, they got theirs out that next week. They got signed up with SMORE and did their Spartan newsletter, and they even did Spartan Special Moments, which copies our Hornet highlights, so it was really nice to see that. I'm working on a special video project through the Central Indiana Educational Service Center. It's for us to send out next year for an individual's birthday. There'll be a variety of individuals that we'll send that to, but it's just another way for our district to connect with people and connect them to us. And so we filmed at Corner Park, Central, and South Grove last week, and thank you very much to the principals, because they're always so wonderful in inviting me in, and the film crew that came from there. So it was really great. I wrote a script that followed that for that school, and I'm writing the other script because the middle of high school, they get their turn on May 10th. So we've got things set up for that, and it's going to be a neat project, really uplifting. Matt English, Garrett Daniel, and I are working on a sports marketing plan, and so we're real excited about that, just to expand that and make sure that we have the same kind of verbiage and we're all on the same page. So I'm real excited about that plan. As for the Education Foundation, if you want to come to the middle school Smart Start on the 9th and then continue a whole day and go to the art show that night,
And come.
just take the day off.
Don't
Yeah.
forget to come to our board meeting.
Yeah, exactly. You have to go to the board meeting at night too, so it would take a break and come over to the art show before you come to the board meeting. Spring grant applications, I sent them out over spring break to staff, and applications are due May 15th. I've already started to receive some grant proposals already, so, and they're looking good, so it's exciting to always see that. That's it.
And I'm going to add too, that a couple of things Melanie and I, we've been talking about for a number of years that we're really moving forward is by the time we come back in the fall, we're going to have a communication plan. And that communication plan, we're going to start having quarterly meetings with key people in our school district. The principals don't even know this. They're going to send themselves and/or a representative. But we're going to be on a quarterly basis. How can we communicate better with our parents, with our community? The other thing that we're going to do, I told Steve Bear this, is after the board meeting starting next year, then we're going to turn on every month, give the staff an update. Because, not everybody reads the board meetings. And I think what's happened, and I'll be very professional about this, sometimes our staff get half the story. And so, for example, we'll have, just like we have in a board meeting, but we're going to attend that staff update. So, hey, do you know that, we're going to be doing X, Y, and Z? So that'll be a follow-up starting next year. Just like we have a board update, communication update, we're going to have a staff update, talking about what's taking place in the districts, talking about what's going on at the high school that may not be going on in the middle school. One of the things we get out of the Hornet Blast all the time, Melanie always gets emails, oh, it was really great to see my former student who's now at the middle school or South Grove and this and that. So we're going to add that to our repertoire for next year. In addition to that, we're working with Robin Winston and Pat Terrell, and also with Mr. Scout that works with them. We're getting our I'll call it our campaign information together. We're going to hit the streets hard. I don't remember the exact date for the alumni dinner this June. It's normally the week after we graduate. Sometimes not even at graduation, but we're going to work with our alumni association, and we're really going to push out. Some schools like to have a DAD program where they try to get people to sponsor individual kids. We're very realistic. We don't have big businesses that are going to come give us millions of dollars. But, Janice and Beth, and I think we have 1, 2, 3 graduates of Beech Grove High School here. That's anybody. So, Nancy, you were at Southport, right?
Yeah, Southport.
Well, so good school.
So sorry.
Yeah, but the idea is, so as an alumni, they're going to get a letter from us saying, would you like to sponsor someone in this program? And it can be at different levels, so that, you can give back to a certain specific, if you were involved in choir, band, or in athletics, wrestling, whatever that might be, or just general student. We really believe that a $300 donation from alumni can make a huge difference in the life of a kid. So that's kind of what we hope to have start. We're going to start hitting businesses, we hope, by the end of the month. And then right after that, we talked to the alumni in June. we're going to be sending that out going in the fall. We just sponsor a student, and then we'll have, well, that student will turn around and write a thank you letter and have some communication going with that alumni. That just takes this whole communication and connecting with our community to the next level. So that's kind of what's on our agenda, what we've been working on, and I'm excited about doing that.
Exciting stuff.
It is.
All right, well, let's go ahead and look at the minutes. We need a motion to approve the regular meeting and work session minutes for March 14th.
Moved. I'll second it.
And Nancy, thank you. Okay, moving on to claims, we need a motion. I'm sorry, all those in favor?
Aye.
No one opposed? Okay, moving on to claims, we need a motion to approve the claims for the March in the amount of $154,586.
I move that we approve the claims.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
We don't have any public comment on the agenda, so we'll move into the business update, and Dr. Kaiser will fill in for Dr. Keeley.
Well, again, Dr. Keeley and Mr. Bear had some family obligations that I excused them for, and we've had some success stories related to that this evening. But sitting in for Mr. Bear, really Dr. Keeley and myself, and Dave Rather, who's been involved, is Steve, if you want to come start making your way up here. As you know, we have a little bit of a circuit breaker loss, and it's to the point where our bus fleet has reached a point of no return. And, we're a data-driven school corporation. So we asked Steve, and again, a great use of Versatran. And so we've been tracking our expenses. And not only tracking our expenses, but tracking them by bus. And Steve's going to talk, he's got a one-page handout that he's placed on your desk. And, as we talk about reallocation of resources, you're going to hear me tired of saying that. What we really tried to do is reallocate our revenue in transportation and how we spend it. And one of the options that many school districts are going to are leasing buses, but we really reached a critical point with our bus fleet. Many buses well past the 12 years. And so we have just, for tonight, we just want to discuss it. We'll come back at a later time and go in more detail. But we've asked Steve to talk tonight really about our data investigation and a solution to an issue that lies ahead of us.
So it's a pleasure to be here tonight to speak with you. It's been a while. But what we've basically done 2 years ago, we started tracking all the expenses related to the buses through Versatran, something called Fleet Vision. And then we've started tracking not just parts, but labor, outsourcing, everything to do with transportation, to try to figure out how can we save money and how can we improve the bus fleet. You also have at your position a little document that looks like this as well, and I'll kind of refer to that as we go through this. But we wanted to look for solutions. How can we reduce the age of our fleet? We have a very old fleet. In the past, there was a period of time where we didn't buy any buses, and so we got upside down as a district with too many old buses. So this year, in 2017, we have 16 buses out of our 30 buses that are over 12 years old. And our fleet only exists of 30 buses plus 3 activity buses. And so next year, it's going to be 21 of those 30 buses are over 12 years old. And in the state of Indiana, you are supposed to, basically everybody plans on changing their buses over every 12 years to keep them to where they're running correctly, they're good gas mileage, not that much expense to them. But for us, we are way over that. And so we're putting a lot of money into buses, which we call Band-Aids, just to try to keep them afloat. Right now, we only have 2 spare buses that are gen ed buses and 1 spare bus that's for special needs. And those are on the road all the time. Obviously, since we have older buses, we have a lot of breakdowns. In the state of Indiana also, anytime a bus gets to 12 years old or older, they have to be inspected twice a year. If they get tagged out, that means they cannot be on the road until they're fixed, which for us, that would be critical in trying to get kids to school and then back home, because we don't have that many buses to start with. And so we started looking at what are some options about 2 years ago. We met with Midwest Transit and also McAllister's, which is the other company that deals with buses, and talked about, well, what kind of buses fit for Beech Grove? If we were going to, if there money was no option, what could we have here that would be best for us? And both companies came back and said, we should go to gas buses. And then the reason why we would go to gas is because you could see, as you flip through this document I gave you right here, these are all parts that go with a diesel bus that have to be changed, and they're quite expensive over the time. So when you go to a gas bus, you have lower initial cost of gas versus a diesel bus. That's one factor. That's easier for the technicians because you don't have the turbochargers, you don't have all the oil, it's not near as much oil or the filters that go involved. You don't have the exhaust systems, you don't have the issues with the transmission components that you do on diesel. One of the big one is a chemical called DEF fluid. You don't have that on a gas bus either. It's quieter, it's better for drivers to hear people, and there's just all these positives. And a big one for us, it doesn't have any cold start issues, where our older buses that are 12 years old or more, we have a terrible time of keeping them running in the winter time, or when it's cold out. So all those buses have block heaters in them, and they have to be plugged in, which are taking electricity to keep them going all night, keeping them warm, so when we come out at 5 o'clock in the morning, we can get them fired up and get them moving. So those are all issues that we're having. And so this past year, from January 1 of 2015 to January 1 of 2016, no, I take that back, 16 to 17, we spent about $159,000 on bus parts and getting buses fixed. Of that, 100,000 of it was outsourced. And the reason why it's outsourced is because our facility doesn't have the equipment to be able to do the jobs to like kingpins and things that we have to get the buses lifted up. We have no lifts. The building's not really structured to have lifts in that bus, but are in that garage. So there's all these things that we can't do that happen with an older bus that have to be replaced. So it has to be outsourced, like the spring shop or places like that, which means that's more money. And so of 100 of the 159,000 that we spent on Band-Aids, it was outsourced. And so we started looking at why, we're spending that much money on buses that are 12 years old, and it's going to go from 16 to 22 to whatever it may be down the road. We could spend our money better. And so Dr. Keeley, Mr. Bear, Dave Rather, Dr. Kaiser, myself started looking at what are some options. One of the options is lease to purchase. And McAllister's has put a presentation together, I think you have that in your packet, of if we could get buses, 10 buses for this fall, starting next fall in August, and start paying for them in 2018. And then in 5 years, those buses would be paid off, and we could look at getting 10 more buses, and then 10 more buses down the road, and replace all of them, so we don't have this issue of having buses that were built in 1999 or 2001, because we know by tracking them, it's just a huge expense when it comes to diesel buses. And in my mind, we're kind of throwing our money away if we keep putting money into these old buses, where we have a great percentage rate, but the bank came back, I think it was like 2.34% on that money, which is great. And we think next year the rate's going to go up higher, and so that's why we thought, well, maybe we need to do a presentation now and look at what we can do this year to save money on maintenance of all our buses for Beech Grove. And that's about it. That basically comes to the point of we just have a great need. And we need to do something about it, and so we just wanted to provide that information for you.
And I'll go back and use the term reallocation of resources. Do we want to spend $160,000 a year repairing buses that are 12 and 14 years of age? Or do we want to start leasing buses? Because our biggest concern, and we've had to borrow buses from the school corporation. And I want to focus in on 2024. 2024, our circuit breaker, our debt drops off, and so that's kind of our target, which is really not that far away as we start looking at this and common school loans and other things that we're doing. So we spent a lot of time on this, and again, we don't want any vote this evening. We just wanted to get it out in front of you and say this, again, for us is a good, looking at our resources, allocating that revenue in a different way. That also will entail, we're going to do some work in the transportation parking area this summer and redo some flow because of just some logistics within the fenced-in area itself. So we're open up to questions you guys might have at this point in time. We'll come back next week and talk about it again, but I wanted to give you a heads up.
I just have one quick question. I know that we have the maintenance cost about $100,000. Is it $250,000 approximately? Are those 2016 numbers combined?
No, yeah, of the 259, 100,000 of it, we outsourced the 59,000 we did inside the shop.
Okay, so how much will the maintenance be reduced? I'm trying to see the offset of the $172,000. This is our projected costs per year over 5 years. How much are we going to reduce our maintenance costs to help offset that? I'm trying to determine how much new revenue we need.
Let's look at it the other direction for a moment. Of the 159,000 that we're spending now, it's projected it'll be 30% more next year.
Okay.
If we do nothing.
Okay.
So it's going to go up quite a bit to maintain. So when you look at going to these buses that we're talking about, all those things that we're replacing now, we're buying that's in that packet, we don't even touch anymore. It's not there. Gas will go down, the amount of gas that we're buying, because unleaded's a little bit cheaper than diesel, and it'll run more efficiently, so we'll get better gas mileage.
Right, but that's a
So-
soft number, because
Yeah.
next year, gas
Yeah,
could be
you don't
$1
know.
more.
Yeah,
So-
but we lock in, is what
Okay.
we do. But the other point is that without the filters that we're replacing and all that kind of stuff, our total maintenance cost should be dropping somewhat too. Now, as I say that, we have 30 buses, 10 of them are new, 20 of them are still 12 years old or 8, 9, and, we could blow an engine, they could have a leak, and we have to shell out $5,000 for kingpins and sway bars and things like that, or have to rebuild an engine or something, that sort of thing. So, as you look at it, it should go down, that's our projection, quite a bit, to where we're not spending $250,000 on transportation.
So we don't know for sure how much, approximately, we don't know how much the maintenance savings is going to offset the new loan.
I think it's going to be in the same ballpark to balance it.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think the key thing to understand is that as we talked about the 17 budget, remember our budget went up this year, which was on the operating side, which was really positive. The second thing is, don't be surprised if we come back in 3 years and want to take care of the next 10. As our revenue goes up and our cost efficiencies go up. So this is not like, 5 years, we'll come back 5 years. We may come back to you, these other 10 buses might be costing us more. What's really good is these 10 buses have a nose-to-tail warranty on it. Now, we change the oil, we do those common things. But, if an engine goes in the next 5 years, they cover it. And so there's a lot of plus with that. Janice, you want to-
I'm not questioning any of that about leasing. I get that. My question is, do you keep a record of how much work you do on each individual bus?
Yes.
So then, you're replacing 10 buses, you should be able to tell us, by replacing those 10 buses, how much we'll be able to cut our expenses, except for air filters and oil filters, right? Right?
But there's 20 buses that.
I think.
Right, but those are still gonna incur those costs. I'm
Absolutely.
just looking at cutting the cost of the 10 that we're getting rid of.
Right.
So we should be able to have
come with a
a,
soft
a
number.
little number.
Yeah, I think we can, but I think also the important thing is this. I agree with you 100%. We should be able to come up with a number in that area. But we still got 20 buses that we're going to have more operational time to do. Sometimes we have to send buses out because we have so many things going on, we can't do it.
So you're thinking maybe because of the age of the last third, last two-thirds, that, that we're really not gonna cut anything, it's just gonna,
No, I think what you'll do is, the cost we're spending to repair these buses will be kind of balanced somewhat within the lease of these new buses. And then I think where the operational savings might even be a little bit more is, we may not have to outsource as much because our two mechanics can work on these buses. We can do much more preventative maintenance. You know, it's one of those things, when you have more time, you can focus on those. But to sit here and tell you that, the other buses, you know, as our revenue transportation grows a little bit, we'll probably come back and have to deal with the next 10 buses, not 5 years from now, maybe 2.5 years from now, maybe 3. We don't know that, but we're going to be able to spend a lot more time on preventative on the other 20.
I mean, I think
as we do this.
that's a realistic thing for us to look at in
Sure.
2.5 years. What I'm looking at is next year.
Right.
You know, how much is this gonna save us to offset this $172,783?
Well, for next year, it sounds like it's gonna save a lot. 'cause
Yeah, it is.
Right,
Yeah.
but we should be able to put some sort of.
Something.
Something tangible
Yeah, we
around that,
come
other than
back with
it's
that.
gonna save.
Even if it's
something.
50,000.
When you look at 159,000 and you take 30% of that and add to the 159,000, that's what's going to cost if we do nothing.
Right.
And then, but what we've done is we've listed every bus and we've highlighted what ones we're getting rid of. But there's so many intangibles. For example, with bus 15, so far we've put $4,095 in bus 15. You know, we found out yesterday it's blowing a head gasket and has oil everywhere. $8,000 to fix that bus. So,
Okay.
so we're not going to fix that bus. So that
Right.
became a bus that we were going to keep. Now we're going to trade in.
Right.
So there's intangibles there. So we'll put together some numbers and come back. and
I
see
just,
if-
Just
I just think
curious.
we need to look at how much true budget dollars this is going to be versus how much of it's absorbed by not having to pay the maintenance.
I think just a general number, and if you take the 255,000, you know, our payment's going to be 170-something, you know, we're still going to spend $70,000 on repairing buses.
Absolutely.
But
Sure.
it's kind of like my truck,
Makes
that
sense.
I've got 140,000 miles on it, and knock on wood, I'm doing okay, but I've spent, in the last year, I put a lot of money into it. Now I'm hoping I can go a while. We know on these 10 buses we're trading in, it's time to put those out to pasture.
And to be honest, we know like bus 10, that's a pusher. We put.
You want to explain what a pusher is?
84 passenger buses, the engines in the back. It's a
Gotcha.
flat nose bus, it can move 84 people,
Rear wheel
carriage underneath for supplies and stuff. But bus 10, we're tracking it, we're putting 15 quarts of oil in it every 4 days. It's not leaking it, it's burning it.
Right.
And so we're not even going to put that in the line to be approved or inspected by the state, because we know it won't pass. It isn't going to happen.
But those are items that you'll be able to cut, so that
Yeah,
would
so
give
we're
us
getting
an
rid of that
idea.
bus.
Exactly.
That would give
Yeah.
us an idea of what you're gonna save. That's,
Yeah.
Well, I think,
that's
Steve,
only what we're
I think it'd
asking.
be good, why don't we ask our mechanics to come next Tuesday? Because I think it'd be great for you to hear from them, because, you know, this is kind of a data dig for us. We're looking at data. And again, without Versatran, we couldn't come with this data. We wouldn't have it. And so I think having those guys come next Tuesday and at the start of the meeting, because we go a little bit deeper. And I think what Steve has is really good, that we didn't put in the packet tonight. We've got it broken down by every bus, what we're spending, what we're doing. And I think that'll give you a real clear picture of this. But I think if you want to put it into dollars and cents, you know, we're not going to spend 257,000. We may get down to 70, maybe 80, because those other buses are going to increase. But would you rather put your money into, you know, knowing that you have 10 buses at work, and then those extra resources that we're going to save on, we can spend on this. And then I think what we can do on an annual basis, we can come back to the board as we start thinking about our fiscal vision and reports. We can come back on an annual basis, give you a transportation report on exactly what we're talking about. And again, 3 years ago, we could have done this. One, the level of mechanic that we have right now, mechanics at Mechanic Cooper are top notch, and we're really tracking this and learned a lot from the process, so. Other great questions.
So are they brand new buses?
Brand new.
That's what
My
I'm
thought
thinking.
is, but I
So
mean,
they-
that's
Brand new
not
buses.
just
Okay.
determined
And they're
cost.
covered in
Yeah.
total, any kind
Yeah.
of large major
We're on
mechanical.
the same page.
The reason why we're looking, St. Pitt, is they're a lot closer to us. They're great people to work with. Matter of fact, they've sold us some used buses dirt cheap because they know we have some issues with finances and getting buses. But then they've also, it's a Ford engine, a Ford transmission, everything is Ford driven. And so the warranty is the whole bus. And so it's not like if something happened to it, you have to take it transmission to this part, or which with Midwest you do, or over here for the engine, or over here for the body. It's bumper to bumper with McAllister's through Ford. So they're great people to work with. We've been very lucky, to associate with them. So we'll put that data together, try to get some more information to you, and bring it back and see if it's something we want to do, or if we want to just continue where we're at. The only other thing I want to throw out to you, which this seems so simple, but this creates such an issue, is when we have a bus breakdown, we have to put them in a different bus, we'll call Craig and say, okay, Craig, bus 1 is now bus 12. And so he has to go and tell all the teachers, okay, bus 1 is bus 12. And then it gets to the stop, and the parents are looking for bus 1, and it's not in 12. Now, we can go in and switch it in GPS, but if the parent's not really paying attention, they aren't going to know that bus 1 is now 12. They're looking for 1, and 1's not on GPS. And so there's all these little things that would be eliminated if we were just making sure we were more consistent, which comes back to the last point I wanted to mention is by doing something of this nature with this plan of action of every 5 years and trying to replace the whole fleet, is we're creating a constant amount of money that's going out, and there'll be less and less possibilities of all of a sudden, oh, we have to spend $10,000. Now we have to spend $4,000. You can see as it come along, I guess, next month. But to get ready for this inspection, the end of April, 1st of May, we've had to spend over $20,000 just to get those buses ready to pass. And that's an expense that wouldn't be there a year from now,
Right.
for at least 10 of them. And so it's just stuff like that are little things that build up. And so we'll get that information back to you and see where we go.
And I think, Steve, to add something that's really important, as you think about the funds, general fund, debt service, capital project, the transportation and bus replacement, most schools have 2 separate funds. And so we get a bus replacement budget every year, about $350,000. On top of that, we should have a transportation budget of $900,000. We net zero. And that's why we're in this situation. And so, we want to get to the point where we're truly replacing 3 or 4 buses every year. But that's really not going to start happening until we get, 4 or 5 years from now. So we're going to, this is a big step. But again, going back to our fiscal vision, it's a wise move. It's good use of dollars. And we want to come back and be able to answer your question. So I want to make sure we're on the same page. So we want a little bit more data on, call it the operational savings we think we're going to have, by if we buy these 10 buses, where do our mechanics, where do they think they're going to be able to spend their time? Is that, and again, Joe, you kind of asked that question.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah. I just want to see where, there should be, I just got rid of my old vehicle because
Right.
it was costing me too much
Right.
money, and I now have a new vehicle, and I
Right.
know where my cost savings have come from, even with the bigger output of money. And that's all I'm just asking is how much is the new buses and the lack of maintenance and the change in gas and the less things are going to offset the costs that we're going to have to come out.
Yeah, we can dig in and give you the operational time on task on those buses. And again, what I'm going to emphasize, then maybe we can do a little bit more preventive on the other 20 to
Absolutely.
keep us up and running. So,
Thank
great
you.
question.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
job. Good job, Steve.
Okay, we ready for the personnel update?
Yes, we are. I will be Dr. Keeley here. And why the first motion is, I think, in the overall personnel report, there's a couple coaching positions.
And a couple retirement,
Pardon me?
the Penny's retirement.
Yeah, Penny's retirement.
Yep.
Do we have to take that? So, and then I'll spend a little bit more time on the next one. I'll go through this information. Again, the first motion is just a simple motion to approve those that are within the packet.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The next step I'm going to talk about is this financial staffing update. And I'll also come back and talk about, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about some policy and guidelines that we need to spend a little more time on. So I sat down, and I think I keep an Excel spreadsheet on every human being. I even put Katie Wolf's new maiden name in it, so I'd have that, because that was in the letter of intent. We started about 7 years ago, we started at this time of year, sitting out asking for a letter of intent. Are you coming back? Are you moving? Do you want to coach this? You want to coach that? So Katie put in hers, I'm getting married this summer, it's my new name. So I put that into my Excel spreadsheet. I have those going back, well, since I first got here 9 years ago. But I wanted to tell you, if you think back to December till now, and more still to come, these are the changes that are taking place. And I'm looking at this one little one-pager right now. Make sure it's right here. And I just typed this up tonight from my Excel spreadsheet. Since December, and even our January meeting, Title I has increased $75,000 for this school year. So part of our budget challenge we had, we lost $110,000 in title, but we gained almost 75 to 85 back for this calendar year, which we're excited. The new biennium budget, again, the state legislators right now, they are arm wrestling down at the General Assembly over the House version of the budget or the Senate. And as I sent you via email, we're hoping the Senate wins, because the Senate puts a lot more money into the complexity index for kids from poverty. And we're talking a difference of $200,000. Traditionally, I repeat, traditionally, the Senate wins that because Senator Luke Kinley is kind of the guru of the budget. And we're getting this department, the State House, we all know that. And it's all Republicans, so there's not a debate over Democrat, Republican. But last year, the Senate version won. Again, they put more money in tuition support, and they took away complexity. This year, they brought it back. They added it, which is real exciting for us. So as I put in there, and I'm not going to read every one of these to you, but you'll see that's our new funding, and we're pretty confident we're going to have that in the fall. And that's with minimal student increase. We're reducing a full-time phys ed teacher at the high school. Dave Krug, what a class act superstar player. He jumped on board and said, hey, I'll go to the middle school. As we told you, Kelly Newman's going to the East Coast, which is a tremendous loss, but Dave's going to jump in to teach health. We made some studies. Again, I want to compliment Carmen Hurley. As we talked to Carmen about, reducing staff, and we talked about where he could be next year, and Steve Bear went and talked to him about going to South Grove, and then I followed up. I said, hey, Steve, we'd like you to start on April 6th. He goes, sign me up. So Buzz Lightyear has a new home. Has just done a wonderful job in the week and a half that he's been there, and it's given an opportunity for our high school other administrators to step up, and Lauren Mara and Matt Irvin and some others are stepping in there. And then just across the board, what we're doing with our enrichment academies, some real positive changes. As we mentioned, Lynn and Gina are switching. Shelley Condon will become a homeschool advisor at the middle school, working with HEA. Donna Hall and Marilee Crook. I misspelled that, by the way. I just saw that. Marilee was a born teacher without her teaching license. She can teach algebra to anybody. Sharnita will take over homeschool advisor. Grant Benefield, who's a TA, will slide into the English position. Mentioned about Matt. Our sixth grade need, again, we have 8 sections at fifth grade on down, sliding up to an additional section needed. Again, we're able to cover that internally because of our reallocation of resources. Michelle Alley, we worked with Tom. Michelle, originally, if you remember, we were going to cut her position 100%. We came up with an idea working with Tom that we're going to utilize Crystal Hammer, who's in our media center, and Michelle will teach half-time and still continue integration specialist. So these are all some of the changes that have changed since we first started talking about this back in December into January. And then Stacy Johnson, who was originally one of our positions we were going to assign back to the classroom, we decided that position was too critical to remove. Again, our title money is back up to almost $700,000. We just feel really good about where we are. Again, we put in place, the spreadsheet that is tracking our cash balance across the funds. We hope that gives you some really good information. I will tell you, that number you'll see rise quite a bit over the summer. Right now, we just saw the midterm cuts we made going back to Dr. Hammock and the ones we made at Christmas. You'll see an ebb and flow going up and down. But once we hit the summer, you'll see that number rising. Tom was pretty confident our cash balance would go up anywhere to $300,000, $400,000 within this calendar year. And then after that, with the things we put in place, we should see that cash grow by $500,000. So we're on target with that. We feel comfortable with all those things. Before I get into the motion itself, I'm not going to go through these tonight, but I'd ask you before next week. This is the 3-year fiscal vision. It's in your fiscal plan here. We're going to spend some time next week talking in more detail about that. The fund reserve guidelines, again, it's under guidelines and policy in your binder that we gave you, a month and a half ago. And then our debt service. So I've just encouraged you to look at those. They're not actually in your board packet now, but they're in your binder. And again, we'll spend some more time talking about those next week with approval in May or June. Our target was to have all those approved and fully implemented by June, if you look at the 3-year fiscal plan. The last thing, again, I'm not going to go through the detailed budget efficiency, but I do want to just point out kind of page 1 and 2 are level 1 cuts that have already been made, and we started those back in July. For the 2 new board members, we passed out a rough version of this document back in December. And we pulled, at the end of the meeting, we brought it back because it was somewhat confidential, but you'll see in here as we go to page 3, page 1 and 2 are what we've already cut in the fall. Page 3, you notice that we had a timeline we put together of April 11th to come back to the board for final approval of all the transitions and reductions. Again, we had a goal back then of $500,000 per year. Again, since we're mid-year making some of these big cuts, you won't see that totally until we get to 18, but again, as Tom and I talk, we're on target of that. We want to have in our general fund a $2 million cash balance. That is very reasonable. That's right around 8%. Beech Grove has never been at that level over the last 18 years, looking back on financial data. But again, everything on page level 2 has been done at this point in time. Again, I won't read all those to you. You've had a chance to look at this. This was in the board packet. Again, Rob Adamson leaving. We miss Rob, but from a financial standpoint, that helps. And Lynn has stepped up. And my shout outs to Katie Pfeiffer, who's taken over the technology education, has done a great job for us from that standpoint. Again, notice in there, Robin, my administrative assistant, at this point in time, we don't plan on replacing that position. You see Robin, Daniela, and Pam all rolled into one person right there next to Jen and Daniela. And she has done a wonderful job. By the way, Danielle, we probably have 30 parents come in the last 2 weeks to enroll.
A lot.
Well, at least 30 kids.
30
I don't know about
kids.
parents,
Yeah.
but kids.
That just tells you the nature of the changes just since spring break. And the other thing that's really positive about the state budget, they're going away from the second ADM date. In both the House and Senate, we will not have to worry about that February date anymore, which has been a challenge. Level 3 reductions, again, I'm not going to read them to you, but continuing to look at efficiencies on that side. Penny Bond's retiring, we're not replacing her. You can see the level of savings on that. Kelly Newman, I mentioned that. Port Enrichment Academy. And I want to tell you, this is really important that you know this. We're not cutting staff in the Port Enrichment Academy. We're reallocating it, spreading it to the middle school. Our huge savings are going to come from the crossing. We pay the crossing $250,000 to $300,000 a year for that program. Right now, we've got, because of what Kelly Meyer has done, what Liz has done at the high school, we've gone from 55 kids at the crossing to 22. And when we started with them, we were required to pay for 40 kids. We're no longer, we changed that contract. So I would expect the kids we're sitting in the crossing next year will be even much lower, which, again, that's saving this. As we have those kids stay in school, we're saving money. So I would predict between 100 and 150,000. We have 100 in here, but I think we're trending more toward 150 just on the crossing expenses. I mentioned about Michelle Alley, so it's a little bit change this. We're still eliminating a position, but it's a combination that we're eliminating. We've reduced $20,000 to $25,000 in our TAP program. And our Title I left that in there, even though our title money went up. I just left it in there as a keynote. I don't think we're going to have to do that, but we won't know that till the fall until we have our needs. So, and then the receptionist at central office. Level 4 are things that kind of the next level. If we get to January of next year, we'll start looking at those reductions if necessary. But on the last page, you'll see the summary of the reductions, and plus also keep in mind that our revenue was up this year, and it's going to be up next year. So I'm open to any questions or comments. I would take questions on that and ask for approval of the recommendation that both Tom, Steve, and I have spent a lot of time on and support.
So does this undo the vote we did at the work session
Yes, it
in
does.
January?
Absolutely. And that's what I talked to Michelle about. She says by approving this, that kind of gets us back to kind of ground floor. And again, that was our intention all along, was to, as you can see, we've had a lot of change, a lot of ups and downs since that January meeting, and that's why originally we had a target of April 11th to give us a chance to flush it out and to check our cash flow, which has been positive.
Are we ready for a motion?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you?
That we recommend, that we accept the employment recommendations.
Okay, thank you, April. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Nancy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So we've already done the operations update then?
Donations.
Okay, let's move on then to donations. Can I have a motion to approve the donations? that were
I
presented?
move to approve those as presented.
Okay, thank you, Beth. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, April. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The next thing is let's just do the fundraiser and then the overnight field trip together. Can I get a motion for both of those?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Janice. Second that?
I'll second.
April, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then on the policy and guideline considerations, you just want us to read through that?
Yeah, just be aware of those 3 items. They're in your binder. We corrected a couple typos we found, Danielle and I, but we'll have copies. But I said they're in your binder to go through. I think most of them are self-explanatory, but we want some kind of guiding light on, especially on our fund reserve guidelines. And it gives us a good target to look at. We spent a lot of time referring back to our cost containment. The other thing I think is really important, part of the reason for making some of these cost containments, and you'll see in your binders a tab called Special Ed, and we're doing this an in-depth study on that. We'll have it for you in the fall, talk about expenses. But I have to compliment Tom Gerhardt, because as I met with the staff, the principals, I said, don't come to me with wanting any new staff unless you have a solution to it. And Tom said, hey, can I do a 2-for-1? And I thought it was Monty Hall, let's make a deal. But he goes, I will give up 2 teaching assistants in special ed if I have a full-time teacher. And the reason why that's important is the teacher of record. We have 50 8th grade special education students coming to the high school. And we have 4 teachers there, and 59. And we have an equal amount coming up from South Grove. And our population has increased. So what we have on the table, Tanya followed suit and said, well, can I trade 2 teaching assistants for a special ed teacher? That pays for 60% of that teacher. It's a very simple math. And we're going to be assuring those 4 teaching assistants that there'll be a position somewhere either with us or Kelly Services. It's not like you're going out the door. And we have so much change in our teaching assistants, but again, that's just a more efficient way to look at this. Outside of that 6th grade position and these, we're holding tight on staff. And I want to compliment Liz Walters, who's given up a lot at the high school. 2 social studies teachers over the last couple of years, and they've been very creative in their staffing patterns. So my compliments to them. So feel good about the progress we made, but we've got to stay on that conservative mode moving forward.
Okay, so just a reminder that we have a work session that's going to be next Tuesday, the 18th at 6:30. It's in the Administrative Center. And then last thing before we adjourn is any success stories, if anybody would like to share anything.
The new band tower's out.
Yes.
Somebody posted that we gotta get rid of green, so.
It's being painted, we got a plan, it's gonna be painted black, and in fact, it's funny, Tom Keeley's son works for us, and he goes, why didn't they paint that when that was on the ground? It would've been a lot easier. And we had explained to him, we put the chains on it to take it up, yeah, it'll be painted here soon. And we're gonna redo I call it the band parking lot. If you're out there at all, there's so many potholes. We're also gonna start on the auditorium a little bit. We have some resources left from the bond issue to do something in the auditorium. We have about $300,000 or $400,000 left. We didn't have access to it now because they hold X amount of dollars until all the bills are paid. It's kind of a retainage, and so we have some money. We're going to be working, starting on the auditorium and the sound aspect, lighting, and then continue to work through that. So, but we're going to do the band parking lot. We won't pave it. We'll patch the holes and we'll top coat it and reline it and everything. So that whole area will be look a little bit better for next fall.
Very good.
Other success stories.
All righty, can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Nancy.
A second.
Thank you, Jill.
Janice.
Janice.